I'm Nathan Skipper with Montgomery Technology Incorporated, and this is session 15 in the MTI Control System Technician Training course. And in this session, we're going to be looking at an introduction to ProDesign, which is the touchscreen design suite, or the human-machine interface design suite that comes with the MTI application software. The first thing that we need to cover before we get into the functions of ProDesign is how to understand the way that ProDesign conceptualizes the functionality that it provides. And so if you remember back from earlier sessions, we talked about the physical point that is connected to a termination device, such as a lock or a DPS or a card reader or an intercom call-in. That physical field device we call a point. And then that point becomes an element in the programming of the PLC, and we call that programming in the PLC, where that point is represented an address, and that address resides on a register and in a sheet. And then when you move from the PLC programming back to the user interface side of things, that address becomes a tag. On the touchscreen side of things, or on the human interface side of things, we need the ability to provide some information about the address that user interface is going to engage. And so that information is contained within a tag. And then that tag is contained within a graphical representation, which is known as an object. So the point may be a lock, the address may be the programming that tells the lock to open for 1 second. The tag is a pointer to that address, which also contains information about if you want to output to that address plus an additional address, or if it's interlocked with another interlock group or something like that. And then the object contains that tag and provides the icon and the color and the font and all of these different things that designate what that object should look like on the screen. And then the last way that these things are conceptualized is those objects are contained within a screen. And so you might have a screen that represents a floor plan, maybe of a housing area, and within that screen you have lock devices, and you have icons for intercom, and you have buttons for lighting, all that integrated together on one screen. So before you begin with ProDesign, there are a few things that you need to make sure that you have. First of all, you need bitmap drawings of the floor plans. So we typically take AutoCAD drawings and convert them into bitmap, and then using some sort of bitmap editing software, spruce those up a bit so that they look right in the scale and size of the screen that we're designing for. You also need the PLC software programming that you've already done in previous sessions of this course. And then lastly, you need an idea of how many screens per control station and how many total control stations you'll want. You need to conceptualize the layout of the facility and how that breaks down into user-defined screens. You need to make sure that the devices per screen allow you to get all the devices on there in a size that is useful to the end user. And then also how many control stations you'll need, which is oftentimes determined by the architect or the design consultant. So to create a new project within ProDesign, you'll want to first open ProDesign, which is under the MTI Applications Programs group, or you can just search in Windows 10 for ProDesign, execute that program, and then you're going to want to select the file menu, and then the new menu. In the new menu or new file dialog box, you'll want to pick the directory to which you wish to save the new project file, and then provide a file name for that. Typically we call it TS for touchscreen, and then dash, and then the touchscreen name. So it might be dash A, dash B, dash C, or dash CC1 for central control 1. And after doing that, you're going to get a screen properties window, which will allow you to create the first screen. And in this case, we recommend that you just cancel that, because there's going to be some other configuration efforts that you'll need to make before you're ready to add a new screen. So the first thing that you'll need to do in configuring the project is you'll need to go to the File menu and go to Config, and then select the Config menu within the Config super menu there. Now all of the defaults for this should work just fine as they are. Typically these directories are installed as part of the MTI applications install. And the only time you'd want to change this is if you were using any different paths for any of this. One thing to note is the default paths for the sounds and the icons are shown in figure 1502, and there's a significant thing about that I'd like to note, which is that MTI provides a number of default sounds and icons, but you can design your own sounds and icons. You can produce any WAV file that you want and then use it in the ProDesign software by copying that file into the C MTI sounds directory. And the same thing's true of any icon. If you want to take any standard icon maker software and create an icon that you wish to use, then you can do that and save that as an ICO file and then copy it into the MTI icons directory. The next thing you'll need to do to configure the software is go to File, Config, and Project. And the Project Properties form allows you to set up two different things. It has two different tabs. First, you have the General tab, which provides you with some basic information that you'll need to supply for the project. And then the Event Logs tab, or Event Log tab, which establishes the type of logging that should be performed for this particular touchscreen design. And so, first of all, from the General tab, you have the name of the project, the site, the screen that is to be used first or to start with, and that gives you the ability to select that. If you don't have that, don't have any screens added at the moment, you can just leave that blank for the moment and then come back to this screen when you have a screen added. The computer number and name are very important to the overall interaction between the touchscreen and the PLCs. You'll need to make sure that each computer number each computer that is operating on the system has a unique computer number and a unique computer name, so that the PLC will know who it's talking to. If you have two computers with the same number, then it will try to send to both and doesn't always work. And like I said, the computer name needs to be unique. Design resolution sets the resolution to which you are going to operate, with the workstation. So if you have a 32-inch screen, but you're going to operate at 1920 by 1040, then you need to make sure that that's set so that when you design in ProDesign, it sets the scale of the unit of the objects correct. In the Event Log tab, you have, for each of the different types of events, you have the option to log to 4 different areas. You can log to all 4 or none of them, but you have the ability to log to printer, log to screen, log to file, and log to voice. Log to printer just means if you've got a .NET Matrix printer, or any printer, but particularly a .NET Matrix printer set up that's going to print one line at a time, then you can log to that. Log to screen means that you're going to put this in the screen alarm log on the screen of ProVision, And log to file means you're going to log it to the logging server if that's set up, or log to a local file when an event occurs. And log to voice means that you're going to have that event enunciated audibly when it occurs. So you have alarms, you have troubles, you have messages, and you have screen alarms that all are screen events that all get logged to the to where you want them to go, depending on how you want it to log. Lastly, the import table is one of the most important aspects of ProDesign, or probably the most important aspects of ProDesign. And this is, you can access this by going to File, Config, and Import. And this is where you would add your programming from your PLC programming database. And you do that, first of all, your list of sheets that you've already imported is going to be in the grid in the left center of the form. But then you're going to add that a new file by clicking on the Browse button in the center right or center left or bottom left of the form there, and click on Browse and pick the programming file. That once you pick it once, it'll be defaulted to that. Then you have the sheet number that you want to import, the N channel, which is almost always LED or LD in this case, this output channel, which is almost always switch row, and then the rest of the information there is pulled in from the programming database. But there are some added functions that you can set, that you can check that these functions are available when you're using tags for that particular sheet. So prop would be you want to allow objects to be propped. Breach is you want to alarm when a breach occurs on an object. Hold would be you want to alarm when there's a hold open. Generate alarms means that you want to generate alarms based on inputs from field devices. Protect means that you want to allow the operator to protect items on this sheet. Report means that you want to receive report addresses back, so that effectively the embedded controller is going to check the devices on its network to ensure that they are functioning properly. And then trouble would be if there's anything, a short on the system, then you want to receive trouble alarms on that sheet. So if any of those are checked, then those functions will be enabled for that particular sheet. Some other things that you can do is if you check the checkboxes to the top right, if you check the intercom, the IC switches, then when you import this sheet from the programming, it will automatically build the switches for intercom. Same thing's true of the camera buttons, and it will also, if you check this button, check the build screen links, and you have in your project sheet on your PLC programming, you have the screens identified for each sheet, then it will build the screen links for that sheet in the programming, in the ProDesign layout. If you want to add a keypad automatically to every screen, then you can check that. If you want to load the door labels with the doors themselves when they are imported, then you can check that. And the same thing's true of the intercom labels. If you choose to build the tags only, then when you click the import button, it's only going to bring in the tags, but it's not going to put objects on any screen. But if you check to build tags and objects, then when you click the import button, it's going to bring in to any screen that's identified in the programming. It's going to bring in also the objects on that screen so that you can then drag and drop them to the associated screen. To do that, though, you would need to have set up the screen itself and taken the screen number and put it in the PLC programming before doing this step. So that's an important thing to note. Once you're done with that, then click the import button, and it will bring in the tags or the tags and the objects for the sheet that you've identified. If you've made changes to your PLC programming and you need to update the tags to reflect that change, then you need to come into this screen or this form and do the update tags button so that it associates that new information from the PLC programming with the tags in the data.